This is the Incra LS Positioner. Timbercon asked me if I wanted to borrow this to play around and see how useful it might be in a hobbyist workshop like mine. The thing is, it's hard to know how useful something might be if you don't actually know what it is. So if, like me, you have no idea what an Incra LS Positioner is or what it offers the hobbyist woodworker or maker, then this is the review for you. Okay, so what is the LS Positioner? Honestly, I had to Google it. It turns out, and I'm oversimplifying, the Positioner is a super precise and repeatable fence system for your router table. That's cool and all, but it didn't make me think that this was something I had to go out and get my hands on. Then I saw what you can do with it. Joinery on the router table. Beautiful joinery. Amazingly beautiful joinery. I quickly accepted the offer from Timbercon to trial it out. So here we go. We're going to unbox it. I'll give you an overview, then a demo, and at the end, I'll share my initial thoughts on it. Inside the box, you get a full colour A3 size reference book, a black and white metric reference book, build instructions for the Incra Positioner and also for the Wonder Fence attachment, metric and imperial Lexan scale templates, a rubber soled push block, the Incra shop stop, the Wonder Fence, dust port attachments, an 80-minute long instructional DVD, a right angle fixture which attaches to the fence, and the Incra LS assembly itself. That is a lot of parts, but assembling it on your router table is quite straightforward. My tabletop is designed for the 25-inch Incra model, but I've got the smaller 17-inch version, so I needed to drill some extra mounting holes. The plans go into great detail around this and it takes no time at all. It's the same with mounting the fence to the carriage. All the parts are clearly labelled and the instructions explain how to put it all together. If you do get a little stuck, the included DVD provides a step-by-step guide to assemble the whole thing. As mentioned, the version I've got is the 435mm Positioner with the Wonder Fence attachment. You can also buy a larger model, which is 685mm, and you can buy both of those without the Wonder Fence attachment at a lower cost. One thing I will call out is that the installation instructions are super thorough, probably the best I've ever seen. Everything is bag tagged and very easy to assemble. It probably took me around 3 hours to put this together, but that includes filming and snack breaks. You gotta have snack breaks. So it fits nicely on a router table which was designed for it, but what about your existing router table? Can you use it there? Well, it depends. If your router lives underneath a generic tabletop, then yes, it's probably a simple matter to get the Incra set up on it. However, shop-made router table cabinets like my one generally have the router positioned in the middle, whereas the Incra jig needs you to position it more to the side. If this is what you've got, you may want to look at a new table as well, just to save yourself some effort. You can certainly modify the cabinet to suit, but that might dramatically increase the overall width, so it may not be practical. Here it is in all its glory, and I will say one thing, it's a very good looking tool. It's all gold and straight lines, it's heavy and solid, there's no wobble. It makes all the other tools in my workshop seem a little bit old and tired. It really looks and feels like a quality product. Let's go through it. This is the Positioner assembly. You use this lever to lock or unlock the fence. This long threaded rod running down the side here, the grooves on this made up with the grooves in the lever. When you lock it together, the threads engage and you get accuracy down to 1mm. But it gets more accurate than that. If you pull this lever up only halfway, it will engage the thread but not lock it. Now the micro adjuster comes into play. When you turn this dial, the threaded rod rotates, which moves the entire fence assembly back or forward. But it does it at tiny intervals, roughly 0.05mm each click. 0.05mm is roughly as thick as the foil that comes wrapped around your Easter egg. On top of the Positioner, there are 5 channels. Into these you slide the magnetic tape measure and the Lexan template guides that you're going to use when you're cutting joinery on it. The Wonder Fence add-on that I've got is this 2-part square tube fence. You can loosen a couple of bolts here to make a larger or smaller opening, depending on the router bit you have in use. You can also offset one half of the fence, turning the router table into an edge jointer. The Wonder Fence lets you plug dust collection right into it, sucking up dust and chips from the source. Plus, it includes this high fence support, which helps when routing taller panels. If you don't get the Wonder Fence add-on, you'll have the base fence instead, which is this part here. This fence has a fixed size opening and doesn't accept dust collection. I believe you can still make all the same special joinery though, with or without the Wonder Fence installed. It just makes it more wonderful. This is the Incra stop, probably the most over-engineered stop in the woodworking world. There's knobs, screws and guides all over this thing. It works, but I don't have a good idea of how to easily put it on and adjust it just yet. And the right angle fixture. Boring name, super critical piece of the puzzle. This is the part that you use to hold your workpiece at a perfect right angle to the fence and then to drive it into the bit and back out again. Okay, so it looks good and the instructions and parts are well made, but how does it perform? Well, when you're using it as a standard router table fence, it works like a standard router table fence. It's probably the most accurate fence you'll ever use, but if you're just running a channel or putting an edge on a board, well, you don't need the Incra especially for that. The magic happens when you use this for joinery. I really enjoy hand cutting dovetails, but it takes me a lot of time for just okay results. With the Positioner, it takes me about as long to set it up as it does to hand cut a single joint, but then I can churn out dozens more with no extra effort. I've got more in-depth videos on the way for cutting individual joints, but here's a super high level guide. I want to cut half-blind dovetails. First, I drop in the dovetail template that matches the router bit I'm using. I'll set the height of my bit, then I'll find the center point of the workpiece, I'll line that up with my template, I'll make my test cuts, and then I'll start cutting the tails using the right angle fixture and the markings on the template guide. Now with the tails cut, I need to cut the pins. All I do here is switch from lining up the jig on the A cuts to the B cuts. Confusing? Yeah, a little. This is where I think the jig falls down just a little bit. It's a touch confusing to get started, not impossible to figure out, mind you, but there is definitely a learning curve. I've cut 4 different types of joints on this jig so far, different variations of dovetails and box joints, and each time I had to go step by step, checking the instructions closely while I was setting it up. Once you've got everything dialed in, it's a very simple process to actually cut the joints. It's the setup which takes some effort and thinking. To be fair, the instructions are very thorough, and I can honestly say that every single joint I've tried to make, I've succeeded in doing so on the first attempt, but it took some head scratching to get there. So is it any good? Man, it's amazing. Some of these joints are mind-blowing and so far beyond my skill set that I would never even contemplate cutting them by hand. I'm really looking forward to working my way through the templates and cutting all the different style joints to see where I can use them. Do you need this in your shop? One of my goals is to start selling product. I want to raise a little bit of spare cash by making items which are nice enough to sell. This tool plays perfectly into that goal for me. I'm designing 2 or 3 simple projects that the Incra jig is going to excel in batching out. For instance, a simple dovetail jointed pencil box for your desk. If I hand make one of those, it'll take me at minimum an hour. If I spent 30 minutes setting up the Incra instead, I could probably cut 10 boxes in that hour. I'd be able to batch out projects, all of them with perfect joints. That is where I see the benefit of having the Incra jig. It's a fantastic tool, don't get me wrong, but if I'm only going to make 1 or 2 items a year with it at home, well, then I'd struggle to justify it in my workshop. But if you have a more productive workshop than mine, or even better, you make and sell products, then that changes everything. You could get your money back from this in the first month if you put in a little bit of effort. If that's your situation, then this could be exactly what you need. Hit this link right now and you'll see one of the first projects that I ever made with this jig.